the supreme gentleman. I will punish all of
The date is May 23rd, 2014. And you decide to stop at the local deli mart on your way home, anticipating a long and restful weekend after a hard work week. Your visit to the shop is cut short, however, by the unmistakable sounds of gunshots and shattering glass. Within a few seconds of these sounds, you and everyone else around you hit the ground in an attempt to avoid the gunfire. However, not everyone was fast enough. You look up, and to your horror, the nice young man that you had just exchanged pleasantries with is laying on the ground in front of you, in a pool of his own blood. This is the story of Elliot Rodger and his attack on the people of Isla Vista, California. On July 24th, 1991, Elliot Oliver Robertson Rodger was born to his father, Peter Rodger, and a Malaysian Chinese mother who I couldn't find any information on. His father, Peter, is a famous filmmaker and photographer. In fact, if you've ever seen the movie The Hunger Games, at least the first one, then you've seen some of his work, as he did work on that movie. You see, Elliot was born in London, England, before they moved to Los Angeles when he was 5 years old. His parents would then go on to have a daughter before getting divorced, and his father would remarry. His father would remarry, marrying a Moroccan actress, and they would go on to have a son together, giving Elliot a younger brother as well as the younger sister that his father had had previously. Elliot had reportedly been to therapists on and off since the age of 8 years old, and while he was never formally diagnosed with any mental illnesses, he was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, which is an autism spectrum disorder. This was in the year 2007, which 2007, 1991, that would have been 16. That took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to work out in my head. He would have been 16 if his birthday had already passed. Otherwise, he would have been 15 when he was diagnosed. So by the time he was in high school, which here in the U.S. Starts at grade 9, he was being bullied. And he would write later in his Manifesto that he cried every day at school. It was around this time that, like many other children, he found solace in video games. I know that I did and still do play quite a bit of video games, honestly. So that's pretty normal. However, unlike other children, his love of the game World of Warcraft, which is wildly popular, he allowed it to dominate his life into his early 20s. It seemed that there was a lack of control there, whereas most people, they enjoy video games, me included. I can say I enjoy video games, maybe a little bit too much sometimes, but I don't let it control my life. Apparently, he did. So, as the years carried on in his high school career, the bullying only intensified. He reportedly, at one point in time at school, had his head taped to a desk while he was sleeping. I don't know how they managed to pull that off without him waking up, but I guess they were able to tape his head down to the desk while he was sleeping. Elliot would go on to assault several people and couples throughout the years leading up to his final assault on the people of Isla Vista in 2014. All throughout this time, while assaulting them, he was developing his feelings and hatred for the people around him, and writing out a manifesto to explain his life from his point of view. There are several reported incidents of him throwing coffee on innocent couples that were out and about enjoying each other's company simply because he couldn't stand the sight of other people's happiness while he felt so lonely and wronged by the world. These events eventually culminated in him attempting to push two young women off of a 10-foot ledge while at a party. But he failed because some young men that were at the party came to the girl's aid and eventually pushed him off of the ledge instead, injuring his ankle. When Rodger returned to the scene where he tried to push them off the ledge in order to grab his designer sunglasses that had fallen in the scuffle, he was then mocked and beaten by the partygoers. This happened in 2013. And this, according to Elliot, is what caused him to decide that retribution against society in general, I suppose, would be the answer to his strife, essentially. You see, throughout the years leading up to this, Rodger had a YouTube channel where he uploaded vlog-style videos and videos of the scenery he was driving through. And these videos contained his thoughts about his loneliness and his views on the world in general. He had also begun typing up a manifesto, as I said earlier, and it included his thoughts on interracial couples and different races in general, saying that even himself being of mixed race made him different from the normal, fully white kids. And going on to say in his manifesto while talking about a black boy that he had come across one day, and this is quoted, "How could an inferior, ugly, black boy be able to get a white girl, and not me? I am beautiful, and I'm half white myself. I'm descended from British aristocracy. He is descended from slaves. On the day before the day of retribution, I will start the first phase of my vengeance, silently killing as many people as I can around Isla Vista by luring them into my apartment through some form of trickery." So I don't think this dude understood that being descended from British aristocracy didn't make him special. In fact, as you can probably see, I'm black. I'm descended from slaves. Maybe not American slaves, or slaves that were in America picking cotton, but I am just descended from slaves as I grew up in I grew up in the New World. So obviously, that's how we got here. But I am also descended from British aristocracy. It don't make you special. So, that quote, though, reveals the first part of his plan, which would occur the day before his planned day of retribution. Thankfully, it doesn't seem that he had the charisma to be able to pull that part of the plan off, as it never happened. The second phase of this plan would be his so-called war on women. This would start with him taking out his younger siblings and his stepmother, as well as his roommates, as they were Asians, which he hated. And then the woman of the sorority that he had personally thought were the most beautiful woman on the campus of the college that he had failed out of. The final video on his channel was called Retribution, and it, along with the 140-page manifesto that he had finally completed, were what caused his mother and psychiatrist to notify the police that they feared that he would do something terrible. The police, however, did not get to him in time to stop what was coming next. In the evening hours of May 23rd, 2014, Elliot started by stabbing his roommates Weihan Wang, who was 20, Chen Hong, who was 20 as well, and George Chen, who was 19, to death inside of their apartment, and then he attempts to clean the scene as some of the blood got in the hallway outside of their shared apartment door. He originally planned to kill his younger siblings and stepmother because he couldn't stand the thought of his younger brother losing his virginity while he couldn't, and because his sister was giving herself away to lesser men while the mother allowed it, and even hosted his sister's boyfriend, something that made him very angry. This is an excerpt from his manifesto on that, specifically on page 129. "I visited my mother's house quite often in the autumn. To my extreme rage, I discovered that my sister now had a boyfriend, and that she had lost her virginity. She had casually dated boys in the past, but never to the serious extent that she did with this one. This one was a half-white, half-Mexican named Samuel, and I immediately took an intense disliking to him when I was first introduced to him. He seemed like the typical obnoxious slob that most young girls are sexually attracted to. Georgia invited him to my mother's house all the time, and it angered me to watch him lurking about, eating my mother's food and drinks, and making use of my mother's house. He was freeloading off of my mother, and she didn't even realize it. I eventually grew to hate him after I heard him having sex with my sister. I arrived at the house one day, my mother being at work, and heard the sounds of Samuel plunging into my sister's through the closed room door, along with my sister's moans. I stood there and listened to it all, so my sister, who was 4 years younger than me, managed to lose her virginity before I did. It reminded me of how pathetic I was, and at the age of 22, I was still a virgin. I hated her boyfriend as well. My sister said that he's been with other girls before her, and I'm sure he's lost his virginity at a much younger age. It is such an injustice. This slob doesn't even have a car, and he's able to get girlfriends, while I drive a BMW, and I get no attention from girls whatsoever. My sister even showed me a picture of one of his ex-girlfriends. A pretty brunette white girl. My hatred towards him only intensified after that. I refused to speak to him whenever he came over, and I constantly pestered my mother to ban him from the house, but she refused to heed my demands. Even worse, she constantly talked about him admiringly. He reminded me of Leo Bubenheim, a typical obnoxious boy who has been able to experience a great sex life from a young age. An enemy had now infiltrated the household of my mother, the one place in the world where I've always sought refuge from injustice. Things were getting too out of hand. Just reading that made my skin crawl. This entire manifesto and the videos and just what was going on inside this man's head before he committed this act just hurts me in my soul. And so like I said, he had planned to end the lives of his younger siblings and his stepmother that day. However, he changed his mind on that plan because he wasn't mentally prepared to face his father. During the 3 hours immediately following the deaths of his roommates, he was seen purchasing coffee and working on his laptop in his car. Then, at 9:17 p.m. or 21:17, whichever way you want to say it, he uploaded his retribution video and emailed the completed manifesto to all of the people who he felt pertinent to email it to.
Girls gave their affection and sex and love to other men, but never to me. I'm 22 years old, and I'm still a virgin. I've never even kissed a girl. It's not fair. You girls have never been attracted to me. I don't know why you girls aren't attracted to me, but I will punish you all for it. And I will slaughter every single spoiled, stuck-up, blonde slut I see inside there. All those girls that I've desired so much, they would have all rejected me and looked down upon me as an inferior man. You will finally see that I am, in truth, the superior one. The true alpha male. Well, now, I will be a god compared to you. You will all be animals. You are animals, and I will slaughter you like animals.
Upon receiving this email, his psychiatrist phoned his mother, who had already began watching the video on YouTube. They called the Isla Vista authorities, and then both left individually to drive to Isla Vista in their own cars. However, they would not make it in time. After uploading and sending the email, Rodger drove to the Alpha Phi sorority, which was the one that he had chosen because he had judged the females in that sorority to be the most attractive on campus. He drove there and began banging on the front door. Thankfully, his attempt to gain entry into the sorority house was met with no response. Unfortunately, this did not stop him. He turned and began shooting at a group of 3 girls that were standing on the sidewalk, fatally shooting 2 of them and injuring the 3rd. The 2 women who lost their lives on that sidewalk that day were Catherine Brianne Cooper, she was 22 years old, and Veronica Elizabeth Weiss, who was 19. He then fled the scene and began firing at people and attempting to hit pedestrians and cyclists along the road with his vehicle. His next fatal stop was at the IV Deli, where he shot through the front of the store, fatally wounding one man, 20-year-old Christopher Ross Michaels Martinez, in the event that I described at the beginning of this video. So you can see the people in the store here. The shooting started, everybody's hitting the ground. That man is getting behind cover. The 2 young ladies in the front seem to have frozen, but it's the young lady in the black there that looks up and she starts pointing towards, here in just a second, she starts pointing towards what was later identified as the young man who unfortunately lost his life that day. Then she starts fumbling for her phone to call 911. If you look down at the ground, you can see the shattered glass from the front doors, and you can see the shattered glass on the refrigerator door in the background. He then drove away, attempting to shoot and hit more people, until he eventually lost control of the vehicle and crashed. Now, with a non-operational vehicle, and knowing that the authorities were any minute from bearing down upon him, he ended his life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, ending the encounter entirely. Elliot Rodger's YouTube channel and videos would go on to be deleted in 2018 by YouTube. However, his manifesto is still available to view online and read if you really just feel like you've got too much time in your day and you want to be made sad at the fact that this even happened. You can find it online. In fact, I have attached a link to the copy of the manifesto that I read in preparation for this video, and it's down in the description. It'll be the first link down there. So if you want to go check it out, if you feel like you got enough time in the day to waste fruitlessly, and you kind of want to get a rare glimpse into the head of the kind of person who would be capable of doing this kind of thing, it's down there. Just be warned, it will upset you. One last detail to this case is that it all could have been avoided at multiple different stages throughout. Elliot cites that he didn't feel true, all-encompassing loneliness until the one friend that he had from childhood told him that he didn't want to be friends with him anymore. I couldn't find a reason that he'd given, but I'm assuming it's because he realized that Elliot was going down a dark path and that he was just being too weird to have around other people. I'm not saying that was the right thing to do. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm not blaming this on anybody but Elliot himself. He didn't have to do this no matter how he felt. It also could have been stopped a few days before it actually happened, when I believe it was his psychiatrist. It was either his psychiatrist or mother that called in the Isla Vista police to do a welfare check, and they entered the apartment, but Elliot stopped them at his bedroom door and talked to them, telling them that he was fine and assuring them that everything was okay, and that nothing was going on and that nobody was in danger. He wasn't in danger of hurting himself or others. And the police believed him and left. If they had seen what was on the other side of that door, Elliot would have been taken in for questioning or arrested, as on the inside of his room he had been staging all of the weapons and the ammunition that he would eventually use to go on this rampage. In the car, they found the weapons that Elliot had used to shoot people, as well as another 500 plus rounds of ammunition that hadn't been used yet. Meaning that if he hadn't lost control of the vehicle and crashed and panicked, there could have been a lot more people dead in the streets of Isla Vista. Now lastly, I would just like to say, rest in peace to all the victims of this tragic event. All the lives that were snuffed out prematurely for something that really had nothing to do with them. It was all going on inside of Elliot's head. I'd also like to say thank you, the viewer, for watching this video, and if you liked it, you can subscribe. If you're already subscribed, you can like it, leave a comment below. I mean, we're trying to build a community here of people who like to learn about and discuss the darker things that are a product of humanity, true crime. So, just leave a comment. Let's get to know each other down there in the comments, everybody, so we can build a community. I do have I started a Twitter account, so that's down there as well, or it's linked on my channel too. So if you're on Twitter, you like my videos, you want to talk to me somewhere other than the YouTube comments section, you can head on over there. Give me a follow. We can talk over there. So until next week, when we gather to stare into the void a little bit more. Have a great week and stay safe.